Tom and Sam had been friends since childhood, growing up in the same neighborhood and working together to build a business from the ground up. Over the years, their company grew and they made money. But while Sam was content with their steady success, Tom's ambitions grew more and more insatiable. He wanted more money, more control, and more power. The turning point came when they landed a massive business deal. The deal had been in the works for months, and the moment the contract was signed, it promised millions in profit. The money was wired into Tom's account, half of it earmarked for the business and half to be split between him and Sam. Sam, always the honest one, trusted Tom to divide the money equally. But Tom, blinded by greed, saw the deal as a one-time opportunity to secure his future and control the company. He didn't want to share the money with Sam. It wasn't enough for him. Tom started secretly diverting the company's funds into a private account, using it for his own selfish reasons. Weeks passed, and Sam noticed discrepancies in their company's finances. He tried to ask Tom about it, but Tom dismissed him with vague excuses. Sam grew increasingly suspicious, but he trusted Tom. He always had. But things took a turn when Sam discovered the truth. He found evidence that Tom had been embezzling money from the company. Not only had Tom taken his share, but he was also using the company funds for personal expenses, diverting money into an off-the-books account. Sam confronted Tom, demanding an explanation. "What the hell are you doing, Tom?" Sam asked, his voice shaking with disbelief. Tom, realizing his secret was out, became defensive. "This isn't what you think, Sam. The business is expanding. I'm making sure we have more control." Sam's eyes narrowed. "This is our business, Tom. You can't just take money from the company. If you don't stop this, I'm going to report it to the board." Tom's heart raced. He knew that if Sam went to the board, everything would unravel. His lies would come crashing down, and the board would take legal action. He couldn't let that happen. Not now. Tom, consumed by greed and desperation, began to think of the unthinkable. "If Sam reports me, I'm finished," he thought. The more he thought about it, the more the idea took root in his mind. "I can't let him ruin everything. I won't let him take what's mine." Tom decided that Sam had to be silenced, but he couldn't just kill him without a plan. He needed to frame someone else, someone who would take the fall for Sam's murder. He reached out to Chris, a shady businessman who was always involved in deals on the fringes of the law. Chris had a reputation for handling problems like this. Tom said, "I'll pay you to get rid of Sam." Chris disagreed because he will be traveling. Tom was disappointed, but he didn't stop. He began to plan Sam's death by himself. Tom invited Sam to meet him at an old warehouse on the outskirts of town. He told Sam that they needed to talk about the future of the company. Sam, still hurt by Tom's actions, but wanting to believe in their friendship, agreed to meet. When Sam arrived at the warehouse, he found it eerily quiet. The door creaked as he stepped inside, and Tom was standing near the back, looking at something on his phone. "What's this about, Tom?" Sam asked, his voice full of frustration. Tom turned around, his eyes cold. "I have no choice, Sam. You are going to ruin everything I've worked for." Before Sam could react, Tom pulled a gun from his jacket. "I warned you, Sam." Sam took a step back, his heart pounding. "Tom, please don't do this. We're friends. This isn't you." But it was too late. Tom shot Sam in cold blood, his best friend collapsing to the floor. The deed was done. Tom couldn't leave any loose ends. He planted evidence at the scene, making it look like a botched robbery. Tom returned home that night, looking like nothing had happened. But beneath his calm exterior, his mind raced. "I've done it. Sam is gone, and I'm free." But as he sat there, sipping a drink, a thought gnawed at him. What if they catch me? He dismissed the thought. No one can link me to this. I've covered my tracks. The next morning, the police arrived at Sam's house. He was reported missing. The first person they called was Tom. "Mr. Hayes, we've received reports that your business partner and best friend, Mr. Carter, is missing." Tom's heart skipped a beat. He quickly feigned concern, his voice trembling. "You have to find him. I don't care what it takes. Money, resources, whatever you need. I'll pay anything to find Sam. He's my best friend. I can't lose him." The police officer on the other end of the line assured him they would do their best. But Tom, at that moment, knew the police were just beginning to piece everything together. He couldn't afford to let them catch on. "I'll help however I can. Let me know if there's anything I can do," he added, trying to cover his tracks. Days later, the police found Sam's car near an abandoned warehouse and started investigating. Soon after, his body was found in the warehouse. The police quickly identified the gunshot wound and ruled it as a targeted murder. Detective Jane was assigned to the case. She had been working in the homicide division for years and had seen countless crimes. But something about this case felt different. The pieces didn't fit. The crime scene was too clean, too controlled. Detective Jane wasn't a rookie. She had a gut feeling for when a case was off, and this one felt like a meticulously constructed stage play. The botched robbery narrative was too clean. There were no fingerprints on the gun, no signs of a struggle beyond what felt like a staged mess, and the single bullet wound was too precise. She knew she had to dig deeper, beyond the surface of a simple street crime. She started not with the warehouse, but with the victim, Sam, the man who had everything to lose. She pulled every financial record she could, tax filings, bank statements, and the company's ledger. For 3 days, her office was buried under a mountain of paper and digital files. Her eyes, red from lack of sleep, scanned columns of numbers until a pattern began to emerge. There were small, seemingly insignificant transfers, a few $1,000s here, a few more there, diverted into a holding account. The amounts were too small to flag as embezzlement, but they added up. A cold, hard figure. Nearly $250,000, all siphoned over the last year. The money was being funneled into a private account under a shell company. She ran the account name and found a match. A holding company registered under the name T. Hayes. Tom's initials. Jane's suspicions, once a whisper, were now a loud, insistent drum. She took her findings to her captain, who gave her the green light to pursue Tom Hayes. Next, she hit the streets, but not in a trench coat and fedora. She spoke to their company's former receptionist, a nervous young woman named Sarah. Sarah, initially hesitant, eventually cracked under Jane's persistent but gentle questioning. "Sam was furious," Sarah confided, twisting her hands in her lap. "He came in one morning, slamming his office door. I heard him yelling at Tom. He said something like, 'I know what you've been doing with the company's money, Tom. If you don't stop, I'm going to the board.'" Sarah described Tom's face as a mask of cold fury as Sam delivered his ultimatum. This wasn't just a friend's quarrel. This was a motive, a desperate, powerful one. But a motive wasn't enough. Jane needed a murder weapon or a witness. She was back at a dead end until she found a series of mysterious phone calls in Tom's records from a number she couldn't identify. The number was unlisted and routed through a series of burners. After a day of painstaking work with the tech department, they traced the calls to a notorious low-level criminal named Chris, a man known for getting his hands dirty for the right price. Chris was a greasy, nervous man with a rap sheet as long as her arm. Jane found him in a dingy bar, nursing a beer. She didn't lead with accusations. She bought him a drink and spoke to him like a person, not a criminal. "You know, Chris," she started, her voice low. "People get into trouble for a lot of reasons, but lying to the police about a murder? That's a whole different level of trouble." Chris's eyes darted around the room. She knew she had him. She pulled out a stack of paper with call logs showing the specific dates and times of Tom's calls to his burner phone. "We know you met with Tom Hayes. We know he talked to you about a problem he had. We can make a deal, Chris. You talk to us, tell us what happened, or you take the fall for being a co-conspirator to murder." Under the weight of the evidence and Jane's cool-headed pressure, Chris's resolve crumbled. He confessed everything. Tom had come to him, desperate, offering a massive sum to make Sam disappear and to make it look like a botched robbery. He even told Jane that Tom had initially tried to pay him to kill Sam and frame someone else, but he was traveling and couldn't do it. Tom had planned to do it himself. The motive, the opportunity, the confession, it all clicked into place like the final pieces of a puzzle. Detective Jane stood up from her chair, her back stiff but her mind clear. She had everything she needed: the financial records, the former employee's testimony, and now Chris's confession. She looked at her captain and said, "It's time to bring him in." The arrest came swiftly. Detective Jane and her team arrived at Tom's sprawling suburban home just after dawn. The morning light cast long shadows, a stark contrast to the darkness of the crimes they were there to investigate. Tom, still in his silk pajamas, answered the door with a look of practiced calm that quickly melted into sheer panic when he saw Jane. "Tom Hayes, you're under arrest for the murder of Sam Carter and for the embezzlement of company funds," Jane stated, her voice as clear and cold as a winter morning. Tom's facade of innocence crumbled. "You can't prove a thing," he stammered, his eyes darting frantically. But the evidence was overwhelming. The surveillance footage from a nearby traffic camera showed his car near the warehouse on the night of the murder. The detailed financial records, meticulously laid out, proved the embezzlement. And Chris's signed confession, a document of his cowardice and greed, sealed Tom's fate. In the interrogation room, Tom's composure finally shattered. He confessed, his words tumbling out in a torrent of self-pity and rage. The trial was a media circus. The prosecution painted a vivid picture of a man consumed by greed who valued money and power more than the lifelong friendship he had with Sam. They showed the jury a timeline of Tom's betrayal, from the initial small diversions of cash to the desperate, murderous act in the cold warehouse. The defense tried to argue that Tom was under immense financial pressure and that his actions were an aberration, not the true nature of his character. But the jury wasn't buying it. Tom's own recorded confession, played for the courtroom, was the final nail in his coffin. After a week of testimony, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty. Guilty of first-degree murder and embezzlement. The judge handed down the sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. Detective Jane stood in front of the courthouse, watching as Tom was taken away in handcuffs. She thought of Sam, a man who had trusted Tom completely, and how greed had destroyed their friendship. She thought about the many cases she had solved, the many criminals she had put away. But this one was different. It wasn't about a random act of violence or a crime of passion born of a single moment of rage. This was a story of a slow, creeping rot, the kind that takes root in a person's soul and turns a friend into a monster. This tale teaches us that greed doesn't just destroy lives, it destroys relationships, trust, and even the very soul of a person. Tom's hunger for money led him to betray his best friend, and in the end, it cost him everything. Greed doesn't just destroy lives, it destroys everything around it, and in the end, it always consumes the person who lets it in. If you'd like more heartfelt stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss a tale from this old voice.